Now, let's get some more on that new data suggesting that 80% of adults in England have coronavirus antibodies. While the statistic is promising, it's not known yet what level of antibodies each person actually has. So how could this figure be interpreted alongside the June 21st easing of restrictions? Well, to speak a bit more about that, I'm joined now by the senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter, Dr. Bharat Pankhania. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Pankhania. Now, when we say 80% of the population now has some sort of antibodies, what does that mean? Does it include those people who have had the COVID virus, as well as those who have had either one or both of those vaccinations?
Yes, so it is a picture of people who have got antibodies for whatever reason, i.e. Immunized or having survived a infection. What we really want to be looking at is the number of people, the percentage of people who have been fully immunized, because that is the gold standard. And as you said, that gives us a lot more confidence if more people are immunized rather than have presence of antibodies from whatever source.
It strikes me that it's quite hard to measure how many people have antibodies because they've had COVID. How are you sort of confident on this statistic of 80% when we're taking into account not only obviously the vaccinations, which are clearly monitored and we have the numbers very clearly, but also those who potentially have had COVID and might not have known about it? How do we measure that?
It's very difficult because the other item that is also missing from the conversation is you may not have detectable antibodies, but you may still be immunized and immune and protected, because the art and craft of measuring and identifying antibodies is not so precise. So the one that we really want to go with is the number of people fully immunized, and that's 30 million in the United Kingdom.
Now, 80% was always heralded as this, or for a while had been heralded as this magic number to reach herd immunity. Do you agree with that?
No, because it depends on a number of other parameters. So initially, we were quite happy if we got 75% population immune. However, with the arrival of more infectious variants, unfortunately, we've got to up our level of immunity. So that's one item. The second item is we don't know for sure how long the immunity and the immune levels last for. And therefore, it's very difficult to predict that we will have herd immunity because we've immunized or people have got antibodies present.
Interestingly, the GPs I've spoken to have often advised that perhaps your antibodies might last about 6 months. Are we any closer to knowing how long natural immunity might last and perhaps also vaccinated immunity?
Yes, that's a really good question. And the proof of the pudding will be in seeing it perform in the field. And what I mean by that is now that we've been immunizing for several months, we will soon know whether the immunity is holding, having been immunized. That will be the final proof. I presume that the immunity will last beyond a year because we've had SARS-CoV-2 infections for over a year now, and people who got initially infected have not gone on, most of them, to be reinfected. So as a real life experiment, my answer is it appears to last, which is very good news, beyond 1 year.
OK, and if that's the case, when we start feeling that it's running out, that immunity, do you think booster jabs are going to be the future? What do you see there?
Oh, absolutely. We will have to have a program of not only boosting, but also boosting and giving cover for circulating dominant variants. So at the moment, for example, we've got the Delta variant, which is not more disease-causing, it's more infectious, but we want to cover against it in case the previous vaccine did not offer cover against it. So we want to look for variants which are bypassing the vaccines and then give you booster doses to cover for those variants which show a tendency to bypass the vaccines.
Given that so far the vaccination programme has targeted the older generations first, do you think it matters that these statistics of 80% of the population overall with antibodies, does it matter that that might probably skew very much towards the older adult population, and that those without antibodies could be the younger and less clinically vulnerable. Does that make any difference at all?
Well, it just is a spotlight on the picture in the United Kingdom, and it's telling us that things are looking positive in that the adult population, the older, vulnerable people appear to have either the presence of antibodies from whatever source. But what we really want is the younger people also to be immunized, and then we can feel more confident that we've done the best that we can do, because when you get antibodies via infection, they're not as prolonged, as general in terms of protecting a range of variants, etc. So the best measure is via vaccine rather than by unfortunate recovering from an infection.
Given that you've said you'd like to see more people double vaccinated, do you think the government should be continuing with its plan to reopen fully on the 21st of June?
No, short answer, but I would say it like this. We are nearly there. Once you open, it is very difficult to shut. Therefore, because we've got a highly infectious variant 40 times more, and we've got a younger population who is not immunized, and we've got a captive audience of school children at school, etc., if we were to even delay it by a few weeks, we will end up immunizing another 10 million, because we are already immunizing 500,000 per day. So a little delay buys us a lot of time, a lot of what we would call protection for a lot of people. So it is a really good investment to say, postpone 21st of June for a little while, and in the meantime, double up on immunizing. Even with a one jab, it buys us a lot of protection for a lot of people.
All right, certainly food for thought there. Thank you so much. Bharat Pankania, the Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter.